Hello everyone, Eric the Car Guy here, known on this channel as ETCG1. How are you? It's been a little bit since I've done an ETCG1 video, and I just wanted to think about a topic that would be interesting. And the other day there was a post on the forum, and somebody had asked me about my opinions of the 99 through 03 Acura TL and CL. And I got into partially a discussion about the labor shift, which is the namesake of this video. So that put me in the frame of mind of why don't I do an ETCG1 about what I'm going to call the labor shift. And basically what that car represents for me is a change from the work that I was doing when I initially started working at the dealership for Acura and what it turned into about the time I left. The span was about 10 years, with a 2-year gap in between where I actually went to another independent shop and worked on imports there. But the point is, when I first started working for Acura back in February of '97, they were still a relatively new brand. At that point, they were only 10 years old. Honda started out in late '86 into the '87 model year. And when I first started working there, I had had some experience. I actually moved from another city, working in an independent shop. So I've been working on everything. It was my first dealership experience. And when you work on everything, you got, I'm going to say maybe more of a working knowledge of a lot of different systems. When you work at a dealer, you can really specialize. It's almost like, you know, being a doctor. Like some doctors are general practitioners. Those would be like your independent shops, and some doctors are like surgeons, and those would be maybe the dealer ones, or better yet, brain surgeons. Maybe they might be the diagnostic people at the dealer, that kind of thing. And just sort of a certain hierarchy as far as our profession goes. Different people are better at different things, what have you. And the dealership has a wide variety of work, but it's all in the same make. So you really get a chance to know a particular brand of vehicle, and I mean know it inside and out. You do the pre-delivery inspections when you get them off the truck, all the way through the maintenance of their entire service life in some cases, and develop your relationships with those people based on those vehicles. But what I saw when I first started working at the dealership back in '97 was, I would say that the amount of service work that we did was probably about 80–85%. And the amount of warranty work that we were doing was roughly around, I'd say, 20%. So the bulk of what I did was all service work. It was timing belts, it was water pumps, it was services, major, minor, those kind of things. Because, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Hondas are actually, in my opinion, a pretty easy car line to work on, and working at an Acura dealership at that particular point in time would spoil anyone. And in fact, the people that I worked with, I was amazed when I first got there, just how they were able to make the money that they made, but they were. The labor rates were good. It was a good time, and it was a great time to be a technician. There was a lot of new technologies that were coming out. Also working at the dealer had a certain prestige to it, and I've got to admit, a decent paycheck. But aside from that, more to the point of this video was that about the time, like '99, so there were like 2–3 years there, '99 when that first TL showed up, things started to change. And I saw the shift over the next few years from the 80% service work and all the, as we call in the business, gravy work, to warranty work. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the reasons that I believe that happened. Well, we all know about the economy, blah, blah, blah. It's the economy, stupid, whatever. But also manufacturers had gone from a service-intensive schedule. Both Honda and Toyota were on a pretty, strict service schedule for the vehicles that they put out. So they'd sell you the vehicle, and they'd do recommended service intervals listed in the owner's manual. And the people would faithfully come in, either when a service reminder came out on or something like that on their dashboards, and they would have us service their vehicles. Something I saw with the model years that were coming out after that was that these service intervals changed completely. In fact, Honda changed their structure from a mileage structure to an alphanumeric structure. So it wasn't a 7,500 mile service anymore, it was an A1 service. and that would be indicated by the service indicator on the dash. So this would inform the customer when their vehicle was due for service based on actually how they were driving in addition to the mileage. So if they were rather rough on their vehicle, the car knew it and might accelerate the service schedule. The service schedule that we always sold at the dealer was always under severe. Let's face it, it was the most profitable. But what I began to see is, like I said, these alphanumeric designations came about, so our traditional mileage-based services went away and were replaced by just oil changes and tire rotations for the most part. And major services, it's just basically changing air filters for the engine, for the cabin, and if you're lucky and it's 100,000 miles or whatever, the spark plugs. Service work just kind of went away. I mean, I remember like in 15,000 mile services, adjusting valves. I got wicked good at adjusting valves because just about every other car that came in was getting a valve adjustment. And it also paid quite well. So we had ways of, we had these fans that we used to help cool things down and speed things up. It was all part of the machine of getting those services done. Well, by the time I left in 2007, it was gone. I mean, and in fact, that gravy work had completely evaporated and pretty much was replaced by warranty work. And two things happened. One, those services changed and got a lot smaller, and they extended the service intervals for a lot of things. So the oil changes got extended. Just anything that was done to the vehicle. The timing belts, in many cases, went away. I mean, some engines like the K series came along. It's a chain engine, doesn't get a timing belt. Whereas the B series engine always did get a timing belt. So, and the J series and such. But and that's where our money was. Well, then over time, the labor shifted from the 80% service work and 20% warranty work to 80% warranty work and 20% service work. So even the service work we were getting was a lot less, but in addition, it seemed like anything that we did was warranty. And I think that happened for a couple of reasons. One was the manufacturers really wanted to bring down their service costs. So they, being in competition with other makes, that were advertising things like 100,000 mile warranties and all this other kind of thing, they were advertising as far as their service cost, and that was how they remained competitive. So they say the cost over time of servicing this vehicle over 100,000 miles is less than our competitor. And as a result, what they did was they took a lot of things away from that service and they extended the life of a lot of those services. And the engineering got better too. The machining of the engines, that kind of thing, made it so that it wasn't necessary to be, especially like we were on that severe service schedule. So away went the days of free money, basically. And you had to justify everything you did. So anytime you're doing warranty work, what you'd have to do is you have to document everything if it's not something that's like strictly laid out by a service bulletin or a recall or something like that. So you had to justify everything that you did. It's interesting because a lot of guys were really upset about this and complained about it a great deal. Everybody's paycheck suffered a great deal along with this because warranty labor times are not the same as customer pay labor times. And the other thing that seemed to happen a lot was service writers would have relationships with the people that would come through the door. Mechanics weren't necessarily directly involved with these people, so the service writer might have a relationship with them and ask the people out in the shop for a favor, what have you, or they would pretty much turn what would have been or should have been an actual repair, a customer pay repair, and turn it into a warranty repair due to some loophole or whatever, or paperwork, what have you. That's what dealerships are all about, and ultimately that's what this business is all about, paperwork. There's so much liability everywhere. There's liability. It's the automotive world. People can get killed, let's face it. And the bottom line is people can get killed or seriously injured. So there's a lot of liability when it comes to these things, particularly when it comes to the manufacturers and how they deal with the dealerships. The dealerships have a responsibility to the manufacturer, or at least they're supposed to try to keep those vehicles maintained and running well and according to the specifications outlined by the people that made the car, i.e. God. But that relationship breaks down at the at the ground level, in my opinion, because what you're doing is, in essence, taking somebody who was making a good living, a really good living, let's say, and taking that away from them and asking them to do more. Sound familiar? It's not just the automotive world. It's a lot of things have turned into that. So do more for less is basically what you want to keep your job, do more for less. And that's the bottom line of what seems to have happened. And like I said, part of it I think is the manufacturing. Part of it is, as a customer, you get your lips ripped off every time you come into the dealership. Are you going to come back and buy another vehicle from them? Oh, it's too expensive to own a vehicle. Some German makes are onto this. Some German makes make that a part of the cost of the vehicle. They say for the first 4 years, we'll pretty much take care of that car for you. That's awesome. Service is included in the cost. I think that's an excellent idea, if I'm honest. I've never worked for those makes personally, and honestly, I don't have a great deal of experience with German vehicles, but in principle and philosophy, it sounds very interesting. And I think a lot of the other makes were kind of wanting to go to that, if nothing else, to just make their cars last long enough and perform well enough. And with advanced computer controls and things, they really could. They could make those things pass emissions for, as long as they needed to. Several years into it to where the person's tired of the car and they need to buy another one. Because that's ultimately what car manufacturers want you to do. They want you to get excited about the car that's in the showroom. They don't want you to get excited about the car that you're driving necessarily. They want you to be happy with it so you come back, but it's supposed to be this perpetual cycle to where the dealership takes you in from the moment you walk through the door and that salesman talks to you and introduces himself and you develop a relationship. And then from then on, for the next umpteen years, they're the ones that basically provide you with transportation. Some people are like that. Other people, have different ways of going about it. But the point of this video, at least, is to just bring about the topic of the labor shift. And I'm curious as to what you've seen in your experience. Also in the independent shops, I think this has affected them in that, like I said, the service intervals and the actual services themselves are just no longer profitable because they're not even there anymore, really, for the most part. So you're left with certain states that might have vehicle inspections, things like that might get you in there to get a look at those brake pads and those kind of things. And that's the other thing. During the services that I did, we would actually take apart the brakes, clean them up, lubricate everything, and put them back together every 30,000 miles or so. And honestly, we didn't have a whole lot of problems with those. Well, that all went away. And we were no longer being paid to do that. We were no longer being paid to service the brakes. We were no longer being paid to do a lot of the things that we were doing when we were in those halcyon days of the service intervals. But and like I said, everything turned into warranty after that. The vehicles, I'll just come right out and say it, Honda quality from about 99 up through 06, maybe 07, it really suffered. I had seen things that I had never seen, quality issues on those vehicles that I had never ever seen up to that point, and I'd seen them since they were brand new. I'd seen them since, the 86 Legend, the first thing that came out. I'd worked on those cars. And we didn't have those kind of problems. We just did services to them. And as far as warranty work, every once in a while, something cosmetic or silly or what have you. And there were like some major ones, but they were small. They were minor. They weren't like carte blanche across the entire make that needed an overhaul. I remember some vehicles like the RL, the 04 RLs, when that came out. That got the award for the most TSBs performed on it before it actually ever got into the showroom. We did like 4 or 5 updates to that vehicle before it ever even got into the showroom. And that's due to a variety of reasons that we can get it into in another video about how cars are actually manufactured. Car makers don't make all the parts that go into their cars. They buy them from other vendors and then they put them in their cars. Well, there was a time when Honda pretty much lorded over everybody that did anything for them. So if you made a taillight for Honda, Honda pretty much came in and took over your company and held you by the hand and said, this is how you'll make this taillight. Well, those days kind of went away. A lot of companies said, heck with you. And, as a result, the quality was not as good. It just wasn't. There wasn't the attention to detail that there was initially in the car make that was trying to prove itself. Now that it is something, it's not the same. So your smaller makes, like your Kias and your Hyundais, those are the guys that are trying to prove themselves. So they seem to be making a different quality vehicle. Tell me I'm wrong. We won't even get into domestics at this point in time. But yes, what are your experiences with the labor shift? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Just in the comments below. Let's talk a little bit about your experiences, and if you agree or disagree, I'm happy to hear it. Anyway, I am Eric the Car Guy. You can always find me at ericthecarguy.com or follow me on Facebook or Twitter, also on Google+. And I close with be safe, have fun, and stay dirty. And this is ETCG1 signing off. Take care, everybody.